Hello everyone, welcome to this month's KeyShot webinar. We're all set up, ready to go. I am Josh Mings, Director of Marketing here at Luxion, and really glad you could all join us today. You're in for a treat. Simon Williamson is back with us. Simon is an Associate Professor at Wentworth Institute of Technology. And I can tell you, if you talk with any one of his students, it will make you want to enroll and take one of his classes. You can get a little taste of the various semesters' work and the projects that he does over on the Behance, his Behance portfolio. We'll link that up so you can have a look. Definitely look at that. He'll show you some stuff today as well. And he's going to break down the process from a beginner's perspective. However, I'm almost positive that even experts can pick up a few things today. He'll be using KeyShot 6, which you can download and try at keyshot.com if you haven't already. And as always, this webinar, along with previous webinars and tutorials, are on the website as well. So with that, Mr. Williamson, you may commence dropping knowledge bombs on us. Sir, take it away.
Thanks very much indeed, Josh. Great pleasure to do this actually. So I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to deal with it with the process that I teach the students over here, from which really is going to show you from the very beginning, the time that they not only open KeyShot, but they open whatever software they're using to model in. So in this case, it's Rhino. First time they see KeyShot, it's with Rhino. We then go on to use SolidWorks, and then some of the students experiment with a lot of other stuff, a lot of other packages, and use the software, use KeyShot for rendering most everything. We use it an awful lot, and the students get, by the end of, certainly at the end of a couple of years, they get really tremendous at using it. So I'm going to start from the very beginning. The basic sort of projects I'm going to show you is I've got a few things that I've just rendered. So I basically render, when I go to bed at night, I set up a lot of renders in the queue, some of which might be half-hour renders, some of them might be a couple of hours, some just recently have been 8-hour renders that I've set going overnight. I'll go to bed, wake up, and they're done. So what I'm going to show you, for instance, today, very basic, I'm going to show you something like this. So if you can see that, this is what we're going to start with modeling. So start with rendering. I'm going to bring in a model, show you how to import things into KeyShot in a couple of different ways, and how to start manipulating the materials, and how to get the composition right on these things as well. So I'm trying to not only show you some tricks with KeyShot, I'm going to try and show you some ways of setting an image up to be a nice image, and to compose and think about the way that the shadows might be and the way that the light hits the product. We're industrial design here, so it is product, not so much interiors, not so much architecture. It is about lighting products, and then having a little bit of fun at the end. For instance, I'm going to go through, then I'm going to do a little bit of a Lego project, so that we're going to be working on something like that. I'm going to show you how to set them up, and a couple of exercises I'm going to show you that I give to the students over here to have them experiment with light and get a bit of pop from the images. And then finally, I'm going to go through 3 different things in varying degrees of depth. The lightest depth will be the last one, which is going to be special effects, really. So the one that it's not quite this thing, but it's about getting some motion into the image, getting some sense that these things are moving in a certain way. So I've got a little robot that I'm going to just pop some animations on, but use the animations in a still image to get some sense of the motion. So that's really what we're going to do. Let me close down that. I apologize for my chaotic desktop. It's I'd like to think it's the way I think, but I don't know that it necessarily helps. Here's my Rhino model. Very basic. The first thing that I like to do is, once I've modeled something, I'm going to go to the KeyShot plugin, which I do recommend you getting. I then will hit render, and then hopefully, if all goes well, it will open up KeyShot 6 and it will come in like this. Now I haven't set the colors up on that particular model in any specific way. I'm going to go through how you can a little bit later on to help you pop materials onto this. But here's my black box, basically. Oops, I'm just going to try and get that across. So what I like to do first, and I have sort of a set procedure, because we want to compose a decent image, the proportion of the image that comes in as a standard is not this. I always try to go through and have the students go through from right to left on this bar right up here. If you can't see that, that is the projects bar right here, which I'm hitting. I'm not great on shortcuts, but I like to hit the space bar to get that up. The other side, I should say, is materials, which if I hit, actually, I think if I can minimize that and get rid of that, if I hit M, I should come up with the materials bar with all the, actually, it's not just the material bars. We've got the colors, we've got the environment, the backdrops, the textures, and favorites, which I set up if I'm doing something quite frequently. I'll set up a number of materials in the favorites tab. But what I'm going to do here is I'm pulling this thing out so I can see everything pretty well, and then I start from the right up here with image on this box, and we can go to presets. I do like square. I set up in custom. I set a square 1500 for my resolution. The reason why I do this is whatever it opens up to, and it'll open up to this the next time, this proportion of screen the next time. I always change it because it makes me automatically think about the composition of the image. I may go back to something other, but right now I just want to say, all right, here's what I'm dealing with, therefore I'm thinking about the proportion of this part, which is the black part, in this square. It's automatic. It just gets you thinking that way. So once I've got that, that's all I want to do on this image, then I'll go to camera and make sure that I'm on perspective down here. I don't want to mess around with some effects just yet, the lens effects. I want to make sure that I'm set up there. Perspective is what I'm after. I also go down, I'm going to move this little box right out here. I go down and change, again, it's the same sort of idea. I'm going to change the perspective of the focal length here to 55. Because we're dealing with product, we don't want the perspective to be too exaggerated, so I change it to 55. We may want to take it back to 35 or less, depending on the scale of the item. But right now I want to compose and get myself automatically thinking about the composition, so I just go in and change it. I just change the thing to start with. Go to lighting, and I stick it on from basic to product. This depends on how complex a part you're actually going to try rendering here. If it's very complex and the computer can't keep up with the render, with the live screen here, then it might go to performance mode, which will take away everything, all the shadows and a lot of other things. This is so basic, I can keep it on product. I can keep it on the product lighting, a preset that KeyShot guys have actually set up for us to make it easy to get the lighting effect. Pretty good, actually, very, very good. Environment, the one thing I'm going to leave this here. You never want to start with this standard startup environment, which is here. You can see right up here. I'll talk about that in a sec. But what I like to do is just take away the background and make the color. Use background, change it to white for now. Light environment would actually show us, if we zoom out, there's our spherical lighting environment. We don't want to see that. And again, it's not so bad with this particular one, the startup. It almost looks like a backdrop. But if you go in over here and throw in a studio environment, there's no way you're going to render it with that thing in the background, and the resolution's not great. It's great. It might have a great effect on the part, lighting-wise, but you don't want to see it. So I'm going to take that and make it white. The background is now white. Again, we may change that in the future. I'm just having that to be that. Materials, we don't have any at the moment, really. We have this diffuse, this basic material. We're going to go drag something on here. Now, I have 3 boxes here. I'm going to close both of these guys down. so that I've just got this basic one. Okay, let's get some materials on this. I go to plastic to start with, and so for some reason I like to throw on this pale blue. Actually, it's a mid blue. I like to throw that on, and we'll throw on, for the sake of it, we've got a button on there. I just dragged on those colors. Drag it, drag it, drag on this one. If we want to change these colors, of course, we can just drag on another color. There is another way we can do that. If we want to drag, if we have a very complex set of parts, and we want to make them all the same color, we can go and drag in the color up here. And it's going to make everything in the model, because I dragged it onto the whole model, it's going to make everything the same color. It does mean that every time we throw on another color now, everything will change. Every detail, every feature will change on the model. You may not want that. You may want the button to be a different color. So what we can do on that is we can right-click, unlink that particular part, and then from this point on, we can then go and throw a different color onto that part. Everything else is still linked. There are actually two parts right here. If we click on one of the parts over here in the scene tree, we actually will see which part we're actually talking about. So there's one part here, and a button in this particular model. The reason why I've done this is an exaggerated version, a notion rather, of why you'll put a radius on these things. This is an unradius model. There's nothing you can do in terms of rendering this thing to make this look good, because it doesn't have a radius right here. There's a trick that I'm going to show you in a couple of minutes, which will help, but you really should model everything in everything you have should have a radius on every edge. These holes should have a radius of some kind. This edge here should have a radius. It makes the image much better. Remember, keep in mind actually that the better the model is, the better the render is going to be. It sounds simple, but it absolutely, if you model everything perfectly, the render will be exceptional. You will be able to get a tip-top render. If there's some fudgy parts, if there's some parts that don't look quite right or don't have the radiuses on, it won't look tremendous. For instance, another part of this is I just blocked the button right on top here. We don't have any sense that that button actually goes into the part, and so we've got to make that look better. We've got to make that look a whole lot better. So if I went, what I was playing around with was perspective now as well. We've got this size product. We can change the perspective up here as well, actually. So if I went back to that, actually, if I go lower than the standard 35, we get this sort of look. And if this is actually about a 3-inch square, 3-inch by 2-inch cube, oh, not a cube, 3-inch by 2-inch high box, this perspective is way too exaggerated. Way too exaggerated. If it became an architectural project, maybe it wouldn't be. Actually thinking about that, what can we do? Let's have a think. We can go to maybe stone. Is that what we have here? We can go to surface. Let's throw a brick in here. We've got to get that scale down on that. Get this out here. Go to textures. I'm just going to zoom through this because I'm going to explain it later, but I'm going to make this, this has to be much more. So we've got a somewhat bricky cube. Now we've got bricks on this thing, we've got bricks on this. Looks a bit odd, but it now becomes something that the scale, because we've now put a brick on this thing, it becomes almost architectural. Therefore, the sharpness of the edge does look fairly appropriate. We want to, I'm going to do another, here's another way of getting a part into this. Actually, I'm going to go to Edit, File, Import. Let's see, I've got Ryan thinking here. I'm going to import this in. I'm going to add it to the scene, which is right here. I'm going to import the file, add it to the scene, and Y is going to be up. And then that gives us now a scale. There's Thinking Ryan next to a humongous block. Instead of being a 3-inch cube, it's a 15-foot cube. I don't know, 15, certainly 15, 12 foot high. Anyway, that's sort of exaggerated reason why you're not going to go for the heavy-duty perspective. So I'm going to take him away. So what we're going to do to get rid of Ryan, who's made up of a lot of little parts, we go down to his gums on Ryan. I'm going to just delete that guy. Yes, we want to delete that. I'm actually going to drag in. We'll go back to plastics. Let's drag in my pale blue on that. Get that back to pale blue. And take a look at that. What we're going to do now is, just if you ever get this problem where I'm getting a little bit of a weirdy shadow down here, what I'm going to do to get rid of that is to just take that box. I'm going to go to position over here on the second row of tabs. So it's got properties of the box itself, and we can go and change a bunch of things. We've got position, which means we can use a move tool, which is very handy, and just move this up off the ground. Now we don't want to go too high, we just want to get a little bit of a shadow that's a little bit more consistent underneath it. So we've got that now that looks a whole lot better. Nicer, as on the next blocks, nicer to put feet on this thing, I think, so that we get a little bit of a shadow line below the product. But we've got our basics right there. So if I close down that one, close down that box, and I'm going to open this box. This is a big old radius box. I put on a big set of radiuses on this thing. I'm going to look back at my environment. I'm going to modify, put this guy in here, but I'm going to change that out just a tad. Environments are in this set of tools right over here. So we go from material to color, which we can drag on Pantone colors and drag that on over to here. Environment is this guy. I do make most of my own at the moment, but we'll go to Studio, I'll go to Panels, and I'll try this guy. All right, I am going to change this back to a different color. So in this case, I'm not going to drag the material over to it. I'm just going to double click on this thing, go to this swatch, and then I'm going to go back to the bluey color. And so I'm just going to change the swatch to become the color that I want. This one looks like this one needs to be unlinked, and I'll throw on the old red down here. So we've got up on now, but you can see already without me actually changing the environment, you can see that the radiuses, although kind of huge on this thing and a bit on the overkill side, you can see that they make a big difference because we can get highlights on these things. So that the three-dimensional, the appreciation of the three dimensionals of this particular product is now much more apparent. We can see it starting to happen. The button looks more real. The box looks a bit more real. The reflections over here aren't controlled as they could be, but we've got it started. So what I'm going to do, after I've dragged in that particular environment, the 3 panels, did I put straight or did I put, yeah, I put tilted. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to go in and manipulate a couple of things here. So I can use this thumb wheel in the environment setting over here in the project toolbars. Environment setting, I can use this wheel to actually move the environment about. And you see what's happening there? This environment is a preset environment made up of 3 panels, but it's a full 360-degree environment. And then if I move this, I get the highlights in much more controlled fashion. Now I can take this up and down. I can take it down, move it up, depending on what I want it to do. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to go for the double on that one. I'm going to leave it so I get a bit of a highlight going down here and a highlight going down here. And then if I turn this, I get a little bit of action happening on that. So we can see that we've got something here. I want to be able to, just modify this a little bit because I want to see a little bit of the dip that's in the top of this button up here. Let's see if I can get anything coming in. I can do it, turn it around, get a little bit. I start seeing 3D. I lose a little bit of it happening here, but I see more of a 3D button on that. So I'm going to leave it. I'm going to show you how to modify these environments later on, but take a look at that. So we've got a sort of street coming across it. We've got our highlights down here. I actually like it a little bit more when it comes down that way. Not that much, actually, I think. Ooh, all right, so we're getting something happening there. Once we get that, yeah, I'm going to leave it down here, I think. Okay. All right, we can then go and play with these textures. So once I get the highlights roughly where I'm after, I'll go in and say, all right, I'm going to just dull this thing down. This is absolutely super shiny right now. Light radiuses on the corner. It's not necessarily possible to get them absolutely that glossy unless you're Apple. So I'm going to go to roughness on this tab. So properties over here on this particular material. I'm going to put it in 0.02 just to dull that down again a little bit. So you can see the shadow, the reflection's got a little bit softer right there. And if I do it on here, I'm going to go 0.02 just to soften that down a little bit as well, so we get less harsh reflections. This is not a texture. I learned that off Richard a couple of weeks ago. How to describe it anyway. This is not a texture. This is a lessening of the shine on the plastic or on a material. To get a texture on this thing, what we're going to go and do is I'm going to go to textures here. Actually, before we do that, let me go to more of a textured material. I'll go for a crazy textured material. Actually, the ones I get off the cloud are really good. Oops. Let me go up here. I've got some downloads here. These are monstrously textured. Oh, let's see. I get these. These things are monstrously textured. We're not going to go for quite that, but it is possible to get some really, really gnarly. That's cork, isn't it? Yeah, that's cork. We can get some really gnarly looking textures coming on here. I don't necessarily know if that's the right scale for that one. Let's go check it out. Let's go through the size. Hold on, that's roughness. I'm doing it on scale. Let's go 5. So we get sort of cork here. Yeah, so I'm now up to the texture a little bit on that, so it looks more scale to cork. Sorry about that, I digress. So what we're going to go, get back to my shiny. I will drag it back onto this, so we can drag that back on. I'm going to go look at the textures in this thing. I'm going to throw on a texture, which I like to pop on in the secondary set of tabs. We've got properties, which we can manipulate the color and the color of the light that bounces back at you. I'm going to go through the texture, and then down here there's one called noise texture. I don't want to put it on the color, I want to actually put it on bump. And bump is the ability to give something, give a texture a three-dimensional quality. And you can see now that I've got a very soft bump on this thing. It is actually textured, but it's very, very soft. I'm going to diminish the size of the texture itself. So if we catch that in the light now, let me throw on a black and see. Let me see if I can get it better. So there in black, you can see the texture up here on this guy. That is actually a texture. So we go to the difference between that. It's not dulling the sheen. It's actually putting a texture on. If I increase the bump height, I don't know what we can go to on that. I could then get a lot of texture on this thing. And so the thing now looks completely different. But still, I'm getting a nice highlight right here. I'm getting the shadow, the sense that this is three-dimensional. Sitting nicely there. I'm going to go back to this, and then I'm just going to go, what's a good color for this? So I did have the gray. It's kind of dull to get gray on there, but I'm going to throw on the gray. And then this guy, the button, I'm just going to throw on, make that a little bit more textured. sorry, a little bit more matte, just to get that effect. So there's the basis of our box in this color, in this with these radiuses on. Now, the exercise that I like to have the students do is, if with big radiuses like that, it works great. You can see the light traveling around the radiuses. When you get to a smaller radius like this guy, then you still want to be able to see the radiuses, so the light traveling around these radiuses. You want them to really pop out. So this is the test. This is the exercise in this particular case: is how can you get the light to ping off the edges of these guys. And you can see on this side we don't have it. On this side we do. So I have it traveling right nice here. For some reason I lose it right here. It's probably a gap between some of these different things. Right here it's kind of nice. Here maybe because I've got a different value on the sides. Maybe I don't need it there because I've got light here, and then I've got dark, and then I've got light here. So it actually shows up the three-dimensional quality of that pretty decently. This I'm going to leave with the texture on. I'm going to unlink that, double click on this, and then go back and put actually oranges in. So I'm going to put a nice orange button on this. There's a nice bright orange button. So we have our basic box there with a bunch of texture, with a texture. What I would like to do here is just add on a decal right here, a little label, just to make this thing finished. What I'm going to do there is I'd like to straighten it up. So I wanted to save this angle shot that I've got here into camera, up to the top. We have a bunch of cameras right here with a bunch of views, but what I want to do is save this setup that I've got here. So I'm going to add a view set to this by clicking this button right here, which will save the lighting setup that I have, and it's going to save this scene. So if I muck this around and put it in somewhere where I don't like it, I can just go straight back to this guy. Actually, I can just refresh that and bring back what I had. And I am going to muck it up because I'm going to look at this thing much more square on, turn it around here. I'm going to double click on the surface, add a label. So this is the third button right here. We went through properties, textures, and now labels. I'm going to add a label. That's, what have I got? I'll put I like the rose here. I'm going to go, I should have, where did I get that? I forget that. For the webinar, hopefully in there. Is it there? No, it doesn't look like it's there. All right, I'm going to stick on the Crazy P. And we'll pop that on there. Tiny. So we're going to go, oops, go to label. Box that way. Oops. Click on that. Oops. That label. Pop this. Where's my scale? I don't go to it.
You're looking for the scale?
Yeah, I'm looking for the scale on the labels.
So right there in your label textures
Yeah.
tab.
Oh, right.
Your mapping is not collapsed.
Oh, yeah.
All you have to do is hit the triangle by mapping.
Where's the map?
Down to your left, the word mapping right there. There we are.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I wasn't open. So what I'm doing, thanks very much. I'm going to go and make that a little bit bigger. Let's go 8 by the look of it, and then I've got my label on that thing to position it. If it wasn't quite right, I'm going to just click on position, and when I get it into the zone, I can do it. I match the material. I won't go into that. There's a skill to putting these labels on. There's a way that you can map the texture on this thing, which I think, I know, I'm going to leave that to this. There we go. So apply the bump that we had on this texture to the label, and then we've got that label in place. I'm just going to go make that red now. So we've got this. So the label now, I put it on straight because if you put it on at an angle, you've got to go and tweak that and try and match the angle. So straighten it up before you put the label on, and then you can move it wherever you move it to. At that point, it's in place. So what we have there is we have our finish. I can go back to just a smidgen. I can go back to my scene, my lighting that I liked. I can now go back to environment. Oh, I keep moving that right over the top there. And now I can go and change the background just very simply with this one. I can change the background to anything I want actually if I wanted to get some sense of a connection between the background and the product itself. And this, of course, because we can go in and change that. This is where the light blue one came in, so I'm going to go over, if I go and make that a nice light blue. I can leave that. Then the back, I can go in and go back to environment, and we can make that the same color. I can actually use the picker over here to go and try and match something of the same color. So we got the ability to play around with that. And then that's our shot. When you come to render this, as I say, I'm a mad renderer. So when I get to a place where I kind of like what I'm seeing, I'll go in and set up a render. Just quickly, I'll go in, press this button right down here, which is the render button. And then I like to render, I'm going to put it a little lower because I render at 3000, in this case, 3000 on the longest proportion. I do render JPEGs until the end, till I finalize a project. I'll go for the PNG at that point so that I know, because I'm chaotic, so I know that it's a final render if I see a PNG at the end of it. Right now I'll just go for 2000, 2000, JPEG, up to options over here, and then I'm going to maximum time, and in this particular case, this will be about a 20-minute job. not 20 hours, sorry. 20, that'll be 0 hours, and we'll put it 20 minutes. And then for queue, that's my queue that I'm on the verge. I'm going to add this to the queue, and it will come down the bottom. Because it's checked, it's the only one that will get rendered. When I check process queue, this one will get rendered. The rest that I have all set up here won't until I put a check mark on. Oftentimes I'll get so many set up that I'll actually not render quite a few of them. So what we'll do there, I've got that ready to roll. It's ready in the queue, so then I'll go and change this. Let's go and make that a nice yellow color. We'll keep that. I'm going to do the same effect with the background. Let's go pick something that's kind of fits in there, so we can go with that. And then go back to render, and this time, because it's already set up, I'm just going to add the job, and there we have 2 jobs ready to roll. Slap it right in there. Okay, so that's the basics of that. That's showing you how to get open it up, get stuff in, get materials onto these things, get a label on, muck around with a little bit of textures. It's all about playing, not being afraid to play around with this stuff. Very, very important. I'm going to close that down. I'll discard that. Okay. Now I see the time we're already on flying by. So what I'm going to do is go to my webinar thing, and I'm going to, instead of, I was going to go through a whole, actually, I will do one thing. Sorry, beg your pardon. Let's open Lego car in Rhino. And there's one thing that I do want to show. I won't get as far through this as I hoped I would, but I'll show you this. What I have on this, here's my Lego car modeled in Rhino. And if I go to here and ghost it, I've broken it down into colors, and on the layers I've actually assigned a color to each one of these parts. So that when I go to KeyShot and I render, I open it up, it will come in, not with the finalized part, but it will come up broken down into the components relative to the color. So when I go to plastic and I know that this color is going to be, actually that color is going to be a yellow, I can drag a yellow plastic onto this thing. This one's going to be black. I can drag a black onto this. The top is actually black as well. So I'm going to, in order to copy the color over to here and keep it linked, I'm going to right-click on this one, copy the material, and then keep my finger on Shift and just right-click to get the black over to these guys. It's a quick way of doing that. The white is going to be over here on these guys. We've got clear going on there. We've got I've got to go to plastic clear on this one. Let's go to shiny and see what we've got. What do we got there? This is almost a good match for this. I usually go in and tweak these colors, I've got to say as well. So this is this. For instance, tweaking this color, it needs it. I didn't go through all my specifications. You can't pull that over. I'm going to just change this. This is a little bit yellower. Actually, maybe I've got one of those. It's a little bit more like that. That's just a little warmer than that. Okay. And then tire. Let's go for plastic still. I'm going to go for soft. I'm going to go for the rubber. And then I'm just going to put the tire on there. See, we've got it. I'm going to double click very quickly onto that and modify the color. Just take the shade up just a bit so we can see it. What else we got? That is gray. We go back to plastic. We go to, it's not shining hard. We go to gray. I know that's a gray part. That should be everything that we've got there done. Oh, red. Red is inside. Let's see, everything's red inside of this thing. So, going by what I should have done, which I was talking about earlier, the square we know, I even in this case I would change it just to get used to it. The camera I'm going to leave. The lighting, we have to change the product, the environment. I do want to take it and make it color. I don't have the background. So we have this. And we can back that one as well. So we've got that's our basics of our Lego set. Now there are decals put on, which I'm not going to have time to show you how to put on. Again, there's an expert. That's many of the videos that are posted, the webinars and the tutorials posted, are great for going in and showing you how to put the decals on these things effectively. But we'd have to put a decal on in a different fashion on a different number of these different parts in order to get the best effect. In fact, what I'll do, if I can do it, let me close that one down. I wonder if I have them saved in Lego car. Yeah, so this is what this should look like. This is the Julia Childs of so this is what I'm after on this. So once I've got that, let's take that one away. Come on. Oh, discard. Oops, sorry about that. Let's get that one. Let's just take that away. Discard. Okay, so we're after this. Those are with the decals on. That's a rough thing. I've played around same fashion. I would always play around with the environment over here. So for instance, I have one saved, I believe. If I go to environments there and I go to Simon's Made, I should have a Lego in there. I neatened everything out for this. I don't have a Lego. Oh no, I do have a Lego. So this comes in. So we have a little bit more pop on certain parts of this thing. What I did here, just to let you know what this is, I went and played with depth of field. So here's the render without any depth of field. In camera, there's a lens effects button, which if we press this, that's the effect we get, which is very, very out of focus. So what we've got to do is select a point of which we want to focus, somewhere in here. I'm then going to go in, because our f-stop is so small. And then we've got that back. I was hopefully trying to hit this thing, which I'm going to try doing again with this one on. And then the idea of this is that we're then focusing on, in this case, the front, and the back will become out of focus. And oftentimes on small products, it's very, very effective to give that sense of depth of field. So we get a good, it helps you get 3 dimensions again in terms of the image. You get a good 3-dimensional shot on this. What I like, here's another one which I'll go through very quickly. We're using the Lego set. In camera, there's one button down here that's for orthographic, which means we're going to get a non-distorted view of the model that you have. In this case, I'm going to go look at the front view of this. I've got to go and take off the depth of field on that as well. So we're looking at this. It's a great exercise to go in and tilt that down just a smidgen to get a line underneath. To take a side view of whatever you're doing, an absolutely orthographic view of whatever you model, and try to make it pop off the page, off the background. If you do it, I'll throw on something that makes this not work. And this is something I ask the students to do. I don't want to go too low. So if we look at that, it's not popping. It's not necessarily bright enough, but it's not popping off the page, off the print. It's all a little bit dull. Even let's see if we can get it a little bit better. We can't really pull that out. Let's up the brightness on that a little bit better, but the reflections on top of the arches there are not as good as they could be. So you can go and manipulate, and I'm going to go back to the Lego. Whoops, I'm going to test. And then, whoops, we're now very bright on that. And we can see now we've got a more defined reflection up here. If that's too bright, again, I'm going to go down, just knock the 0.01, make that a little bit softer, 0.02, and then you start getting a nice little reflection right here that shows up very nicely. Let's look at the environment on this one. To turn this around, see if we get anything better. Nope, that's about the way it's going to pop. So give yourself the opportunity to look at everything, anything that you do elevationally. And one thing about this is we can go to Scene, we can go to Lego. I can right-click on that. I can go and duplicate this, which now means we've got 2 Legos. I can go to the Position tool, and there's so many things to talk about here. I can pull off this guy right here, and then if I look at it, I'm going to turn it around here just to save. I'm going to stop seeing stuff on this. I'm going to just take off these 2 and then look at 3. And I'm going to turn this, oops, I'm trying to follow the rules and hit Shift. There we go, and hit that at 90 degrees to the other one. Then when we go to camera, oh, that's great. Standard view, if we want to go front, we're going to go, I have to do this. Move tool on that one, and then we want translate. We don't want rotate, so then I can just move this. And so that gives you now the opportunity to look at this thing side by side. Elevational views, again, trying to make them pop off the page. It's not a bad visual to get to look at these things in such a fashion. We want to go for camera. Always nice to just tilt down the inclination down to, let's say, I did 0.25 before, but put a little shadow below it by tilting this thing down a smidge. And we've got something that looks pretty interesting. Okay, I didn't get to play with the environments, which I wanted to do because I did mess around with this one quite a bit. Right, one last thing. On to the final. If that all makes sense, I'm kind of, because I'm getting faster and faster, I've got to, just losing my train. All right, we go fast. On this one, I'm going to open something up. Oh, this is the little robot. I'm going to open this straight up. All right, so I'm going to do something with this, just to show I can bring this out. So what we're going to do on this thing is to This is going to be, the environment's going to be the old alpha, so I'm going to go in. I'm going to pop in an exterior environment that I played around with to get it to be really white. There's our environment. We don't want to see it. I'm going to go for color. But it makes it appear to be outside. The lighting sometimes gets a little bit more realistic. If you have an exterior a product that is based on the exterior and you have an exterior lighting scheme, the lighting can get more realistic by using such environments. I don't want that to be bright, so I'm just going to turn that down. All right, so we've got this thing. I want to make these, I want to make it look, in this case, like it's rolling. It's actually rolling. So what I'm going to do here, in this, I have the wheels on a separate layer. All I'm going to do is right-click on here. I'm going to animate, put an animation on these. Again, there's plenty of videos that will show you how to do this. I'm going to go for rotation on this one. And then I'll move this up so we can just see it a little bit better and move this out of the way. So come on. Good. And then I've got to pick the right axis. I'm going to move that over there. You can see the wheels are not going in the right direction. Let's take a look at that. And how much are they going to rotate? Let's go about 1400 degrees. Now, what we have to do is put motion blur on here, which is a button right here on this bar. If I have motion on there and just leave it a wee while, you'll see in the real render that we're actually now the wheels are appearing to be turning. I've got them traveling in 1 second. I've got them traveling 1400 degrees, so they're really kind of whizzing. They're whizzing around, these wheels. Now, so I've got this thing looking like these things are the wheels are turning, but I want to make it look as though that the vehicle is actually, this little robot is moving. So in this case, I'm going to go up to edit, and I'm going to add geometry, and I'm going to add in a backdrop, which there it is. We can see it faintly in the background. I click it on, it's going to be right there. I'm going to go make it a little bit bigger. This thing, I keep flopping that right there. I'm going to make that 3 times the size, quite large. Make sure that it's snapped to the ground, and I'm going to move it this way. So I'm going to make sure, there it is, our little robot right in the middle of this thing. Move tool. I'm going to move it this way. And that's, you'll see why in a sec. So I've got that thing. Let's just turn it. I'm going to turn that around. I would turn the background normally, but I'm going to just turn that. All right, and then I'm going to put a whopping great texture. I love these textures that somebody had the creativity to make and post them on the cloud. I'm going to go take one of these whoppers and plop it on here. So that's a good one. So there's a really exaggerated texture, only for me to go in and I'm going to go and scale that down. Actually, I'm going to make that a little bit. So, right there. And then, this is purely for me to make this look like it's moved. It's not going to look like this big texture, but it does look like it's kind of deserty already. So I'm going to go in there. I'm going to go to backdrop here, right-click again, animate. This time I'm going to translate. I'm going to make it move in a straight line. Move this back here. And then I'm going to find out which direction I need to make that move. I'm going to assume that it's this one. Yeah. And then I'm going to make it move 800 millimeters over 1 second. And so when I let that go now, it should start blurring the background at the same rate the wheels blurring, so that the thing looks like it's speeding along. Finally, on this one, I'm going to go to a preset that is appropriate for this, one of my customs, and it's the 2 squares, so it's 1600 by 800. I've got my animation set. This thing's now should look like it's speeding. Let's get a little closer. and then we can just let that settle in for a wee while. If we don't want this background, any of these backgrounds can be modified. We can go in and play with the blend with color on these things. If we want the part to stand out, we can change it. I don't know what the answer is in this time, but maybe that. Let's take a look at that. That looks like it's sun drenched. And then, so if we let the wheels go, we let the background go, that's going to be all right. So 35, I didn't go through my thing. I'm going to go up to 75 on this one because it's too far, too close. Good. Well, maybe exaggeration is good on this. Hold on, fudging. Let's go 25 and see whether they're get a bit more of that. Too much with my back. I'd have to make my background bigger. Let's go to 40. So if we keep it there, we should see that just kick in now. Wheels are turning. Background's moving. Technically, that background might be going the wrong direction. This thing could be backing up. It's not going forward. But the effect is starting to build, so it's render time. If that's one that I want, this one is going to be a 3000 long direction. This one will be a JPEG still, but I'm going to render this one for a max time of 1 hour. I want 30 seconds extra. Q. Let's add this job. It is added. So those are the 3 renders that I got ready to go. If I hit process Q, it will now start up. So I'll do that. That's the last thing. So here's the render. There's the first render, and it's going to go. I set that for 20 minutes, so it's going to render for 20 minutes. It's going to then stop this render. It's going to save it, and then move on to the next one, and then move on to the racing robot to finish up. If you want to stop these in the middle of it, we can hit the button, the X here, but it's going to want to save this thing at that point, and it may not be worth saving. So you just hit stop render queue, and then yes, and it won't have taken away anything that you would set up here. When that happens, when I render as well, I do put it back to 100%, and as I say, go to bed, I shut it down, go to bed, and then wake up with these things done. Okay, I think that's about it. I'd love to have gone to a little bit more depth on the environments and setting up the environments. Again, there are plenty of good examples of how to do that. I think now is, if Josh is up for it, question time.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. That was wonderful.
Sorry about speeding up.
Really,
It's how my
no
classes work.
problem.
You realize you only have a certain amount of time, and it hits you at a certain point, and then.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to have you back then.
Yeah, I can go into any of these things a little bit deeper. I could, even the boxes, I can spend an hour on just doing the boxes. Not so exciting, but there's a lot of lessons to be learned from just doing that.
Oh, absolutely. And you really made it, you made it obvious how easy it is to do all that in KeyShot. It was
Oh yeah,
wonderful to see on so many different examples.
yeah. On any of those things, I think you get used to modeling, designing, then modeling, and then very quickly popping some materials on, popping some lighting that you've already built. In most cases, you've already built a lighting suitable for such a product that you're actually trying to render, and then it's quick. Within 15 minutes, you can have a render that you can go show somebody. You can send these things out, pop them on the wall, and study these things. I like to actually just throw on gray on these things and then print them out and doodle on them. Just the robots. I'm constantly, putting a lot of details on. So I'll go print it gray, and then I'll doodle on the fans, or I'll doodle on the lights, or I'll doodle on the, the bits and bobs that I want to come off this thing, and then go model them, and then go render. So literally on a thing like this, I'll have probably 150 renders of the process going through these things, and then at the very end, I'll render one at a whopping 9,000 by 9,000 or 9,000 by 450 on this one. And then let it go for 8 hours.
Excellent. Well, we don't actually have very many questions, but some people were wondering what your computer specs are, what your CPU power is?
That's a good question. I don't really know. This is a MacBook Pro that we get here at Wentworth, which is a great computer. Um, I do have the 8 cores. If that makes any difference, I powered it up to that thing. Normally, it's cranking on those things. Because I'm an oldster, I don't usually have a mass of other applications going at the same time, so I'm not checking out friends of any kind. If I had any, I still wouldn't check them out. Um, so, uh, I think this is about all I do. Um, so it it's a decently powerful computer, but it's not exceptional. It's not like a massive thing that I'm using here. It's a laptop. It cranks nicely, but it works beautifully. I've never had an issue where it can't handle. Where certainly the computer can't handle KeyShot, and KeyShot can handle a big files. I send some whopping great files, especially from Rhino. SolidWorks not so bad, but Rhino can have some whopping great files going over that KeyShot handles very well, and then the computer handles the KeyShot process very well.
Mm-hmm. And you're doing that all on a laptop, no special graphics card, of course. So
Nope,
that's
nope,
that's
nope,
that's great
not
that you're
not
sitting
at
there
all.
doing this on a laptop.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it never changes. We used to have a whopping great Mac, a super Mac over in a room that I used to just set things going. Animations, especially when you'd have try to get a large animation and you'd have 500 frames of something like this. You need something big to render that. But that was the only case. Otherwise, these computers handle it beautifully.
Great, great. Well, thank you again, Simon, and everyone out there. If you haven't tried KeyShot 6, go snag it at
Yeah.
keyshot.com/try. And remember, if you do buy it now, you will get KeyShot 7 free when it's released. And
Mm-hmm.
just a little Easter egg here. Simon has done some work for us on graphics for KeyShot 7. Awesome stuff ahead that you'll see with the release of
Yeah.
KeyShot 7. Thank you so much for that, Simon. I can't wait to get those visuals out there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
good stuff. And it's KeyShot Render World is coming up in just less than 10 days. If you haven't seen that yet, you may not be able to come, but check out the speakers and workshops that we'll have out in Huntington Beach, California. It's at keyshot.com/renderworld. So hope you can make it. And as mentioned, the recording of this webinar will be on the KeyShot website and on our KeyShot YouTube channel, where you can find a lot of other content. Simon, thanks again. We'll definitely have to get you back on, and that wraps things up for us this time.
Yeah.
So thanks again, everyone. Have a wonderful week.
Cool.